I am Nirmala Rajasingam. I live in London. I fled Sri Lanka nearly 23 years ago. In the late 70s, as the Sri Lankan state began to militarize and unleash repression on the Tamil minority community there, I decided that I should support the struggle for Tamil self-determination and, of course, eventually the Liberation Tigers for Tamil Elam. In the early days, when I was a sympathizer of the LTT, I used to help by looking after, caring for their injured cadres. They used to come and be in our house when they were injured. And so then sometimes we needed doctors, obviously, and my sister being a medical doctor, I would go to her and I would ask her to help us. I was detained under the Sri Lankan Prevention of Terrorism Act, which was primarily enacted to target Tamils. And at that time was seen to be as draconian as the South African detention laws. I was detained for 22 months in solitary confinement. I was myself rescued from prison by the Liberation Tigers, and then I fled to India. I then began to work for them full time. I soon realized that this was not the place for me politically. I found it to be a very undemocratic organization, extremely militaristic. And within 6 months of reaching Chennai, I left the movement. There were 5 Tamil militant movements. Ultimately, the LTT came out of it as the dominant movement militarily, because they just simply attacked the camps of the other movements and decimated them. To all those people who say, if not the LTT, who else do we have? Who else do we have? They say they're the only protectors we have. It is because of the LTT that we do not have anybody else to defend us. Because the LTT wiped out any possibility of there being a democratic voice for the Tamil people. So here I was, wanted by the Sri Lankan government as well as now by the LTT. So it was at that point I decided to flee to London. Well, I was in London when my sister was murdered. There was the huge IPKF war. The LTT and the Indian Peacekeeping Force had a 2.5-year huge war. And she and 2 of her other close friends, also university teachers, began to document the abuses, the human rights violations by all actors. She was scathing about the IPKF, but she was also critical of the LTT. And the LTT murdered my sister for speaking out. And after that, I began campaigning about her murder as well. The Tamil people are orphaned today. That is the tragedy of it. They are victims. They have lost all control over their lives. Thousands of civilians are trapped between the government forces and the LTT. This kind of onslaught and terror has been unleashed by both these parties. In Colombo at the moment, we have one of the worst governments we have seen in the last 30-year history. We have never seen the military become so powerful and influential within government circles because of their victories. At the top of government, you have Rajapaksa and his brothers, almost like an authoritarian oligarchy.
I have only 2 groups, that is the people who wants to fight terrorism and the terrorists. 2 groups. Either you are a terrorist or you are a person who's fighting the terrorists.
As George Bush said, you're either with us or against us.
Exactly.
What the war on terror discourse did was, there are terrorists, let's wipe them out. Let's kill them. Let's cull them. That doesn't work. I don't think it works. You have to deal with it politically. And unfortunately, the war on terror discourse only privileges a military solution. And that is why, if you go on along those lines, this problem will never end. Even if the LTT is routed as a conventional force, it doesn't mean the end of things. It wouldn't take much for these young to take up arms again or strengthen any residual LTT forces that are there if we are thinking of the long-term future and the well-being of the Tamil people. we must start thinking of how we can rebuild a way to live with the other communities in Sri Lanka and give up the cry for secession.